Hey everyone, welcome to the second game, my second four-player game in the International Championship in the Grandmaster division. I'm playing against Genghisip. Uh, Still can't pronounce his name. Wawrzyniec, Wawrzyniec, Wawrzyniec or something. Mushan, myself. In the first position, choice for me is between Roman Roads and Library, and I tend to think that Roman Roads is just a little tiny bit better. I don't usually have issues with hand space. I do value things like warfare a little bit higher than most people, so I tend to have a third military action regardless. So I don't really need to hold as many cards. And I just think that the extra yellow, the extra tokens actually do quite a bit for your economy and stuff. Um, Also, like, I definitely prefer extra resources in the beginning as well. And it's just a little bit cheaper, even though there are more steps as well. But it's really close between them. In general, I value pyramids and Roman roads just slightly higher than library. And the biggest reason that I say that is because pyramids from the base game did not get a buff, and library did. So there kind of has to be a reason for that. So I go for Roman roads, Genghisip goes for library, and Alex, which I think is pretty much the best play that there is. Sun Tzu goes for, or sorry, blue goes for Sun Tzu, frugality, and Mushan goes for Confucius, stockpile, and nothing else. So I think at this point, pretty good chance to look at what the actual like general strategies there could be in this game. There's like a Fleming to go with the Hollywood. There's Pierre to go with internet. There's Einstein, Gates, Jobs to all go with spaceflight. So there are definitely a lot of good directions to go towards. There's also like Cook with the Suez, and there's like a couple of good colonization leaders in Barb, Isabella into Cook. But there's no like International Red Cross for more colonies to pay off and stuff as well. And then, actually, let me let the row fall, just so you know, just so you can see the rest of it. And then if we look at H1 leaders and stuff, there's some fair strength-based stuff with Joan, Saladin, Nostradamus, Barbarossa, but it's not as aggressive. There's no Zizka. There's like no Khan, I guess, as well. So seems like pretty balanced throughout the middle. There's no like Leo and stuff, right? No Leo or Gutenberg for like extra science kind of things. And then through H2, you have the Darwin into Pierre or Darwin into any of the other science leaders. Same with Newton, and the same idea. Gaudi can go into Fleming. Shakespeare can go into Fleming. Just things to kind of look out for, because there's definitely good science payoff, wonders and stuff. I'm not really committed towards anything in the very beginning. It's just good to note those ideas. So coming to my turn, I'm just going to take Boudica, and then just do normal stuff. There's no real point to do anything else. This engineering genius would be expensive to take, and I'd much rather just increase pop in those kind of things. Genghisip, also going to basically do normal stuff. He also skips out engineering genius, which I think is totally correct, actually. And then blue goes for Stonehenge, picks up engineering genius, and builds a mine, so he doesn't increase population, which I really don't think it's actually necessary, especially because Genghisip is probably going to use the Alex ability, and I might not seed, he doesn't have to seed, so he's not really risking very much. And then Mushan also is going to do normal things. So here, the engineering genius is not super great for me, but I'm going to take it anyways. Just going to start building out right away. I figure that I can use engineering genius for a later wonder, since Roman Road's going to finish really quickly. There's also thought of just going for printing press, like grabbing irrigation printing press and doing this. So I can go for printing presses next turn. But in general, I prefer alchemies and stuff. Something to note is that there is a Shakespeare in the game, so you can go the printing press drama route to make things, to get some cheap culture. But I'm not really thinking about that right now. Mostly thinking that I don't really have a ton to do with my extra actions, so I'm just going to take the highest value card. It could have been Joan as well, but Engineering Genius is totally fine. There's some really good H1 wonders out here. St. Pete's, Machu Picchu, Great Wall, and Himeji. And even Taj Mahal in the right circumstance. So he uses Alex right away and then switches to Joan. Could have done Joan or Nostradamus, but it makes sense for Joan to get the third military action. We all get a free warrior, so doesn't miss out. Blue doesn't miss out on that because we had development settlement earlier. So blue was very free to seed basically. And then he's just going to do relatively standard things. Can definitely be an idea. Can definitely just think about going for the lab instead of building Stonehenge. But it's honestly, like, it's really just a preferential call. I think in this case, with the unhappiness already, with the consumption already, I mean, I'd probably build the lab. He also could have gone for printing press here for the aforementioned Shakespeare stuff. But I'm assuming that this is mostly done to be action efficient, because if he builds the lab, he doesn't have much to do besides take one of these cards, and none of these are particularly high value, to be honest. So I guess just Stonehenge out, possibly go into like Monarchy next turn, or Cauldron Laws. It's just kind of easier to do, essentially, without having to wait for production. It just gets the science right away. Alright, develop civil life. So he uses that to build a lab, builds a warrior from the event, takes Nostradamus, and switches into it right away. Which I found pretty surprising, to be honest. Because in this situation, especially with 3 event cards, you don't need to be stronger for the next coming rounds. And I think the extra science is more valuable than whatever culture that you're producing with Nostradamus. So I definitely would probably, if you want him, just not switch into him in this turn. Alright, finish Roman roads and use civil life to develop my irrigation. And then I actually do end up taking this printing press, because I am going to start, looks like, I haven't built my lab yet. I have 3 science next turn. I should have a free population in order to build out if I want to, so I won't be lagging too far behind in science. And I can still use Boudica to go for science production, continue to go for science production, because I don't necessarily think that I'm going to be one of the weakest next turn, especially when there's no military techs on the row. Genghisip goes for alchemies, which I definitely think is fine. Something to note is that I think that maybe iron's a little better here. You can't necessarily go for it. The biggest reason that I think to go for iron is because you have library already. So I think that going for iron here is probably a little bit better than the alchemy. But if you get 5 science, and with 5 science going into H2, you're pretty much set throughout all of H2, and even you could, because it's so early, you could probably be set with 5 science through all of H3. So I can definitely respect going for alchemies here, and especially because he gets to take this urban growth as well. But you can go for iron here instead, get out of corruption by increasing pop. And it's kind of tough to say which one's actually better. One issue is that you leave iron and stuff on one civil action for blue, since he prefers iron as well over alchemy. But it's definitely a decision call, or like a whatever you'd like to decide, which one you value more basically at this point. And I think generally valuing resources in Age 1 is generally what's looked upon. But starting with alchemy as your first build, means that you have a lot of science. You can go for a lot of H1 texts, which you kind of like actually. You kind of like having code of laws. You kind of like having iron. You kind of like having one military tech, and that's actually quite a bit of science. So starting with alchemy can really help in that as well. Blue goes for the trade agreement crack to give me the colonization, him extra tokens. Extra blue tokens are always good, so I'm assuming that's why he's offering it. Also, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure why he offered it to me specifically, but I can kind of sense a colonization strategy possibly appearing with Developed and Isabella here. So I kind of accept it. Oftentimes I won't accept it unless I can go for that extra colonization. Just let him waste a little action. But he didn't have any issues with corruption this turn anyways, so pretty happy to just let blue just do this. And then goes for Code of Laws, and then also grabs the iron afterwards. Mushan Seeds gets resources enough to finish pyramids, and then goes for Monarchy, Bread and Circus. He will need a happiness solution, so makes sense. Going into my turn. Actually, I'm very deep into my yellow blue bank. I don't really have a decent way to spending a lot of resources. If I want to go for printing press here, it's kind of slow. It takes me 4 actions just to build 1 printing press. To increase pop twice would bring me here in my blue bank. Then 2 more cubes or 3 more cubes to increase again. And then I could just barely get out of corruption with 1 printing press. But at the same time, I'm looking at that I have colonization bonus, I have developed territory. I'm thinking at Isabella, and she's a pretty solid leader. I don't have iron, so there's a good chance that I want extra resource production from her as well. And if I do switch out this turn, I can get the extra blue token from Taj Mahal at some point as well. So having a lot of extra blue tokens could generally be pretty useful if I start to think about this whole colonization strategy. So my options basically are to start going for printing presses and not switch a leader. My only other leaders being, Saladin, Barb. Those are my only other real 2 options. And I'm only competing with blue for those leaders. But the whole colonization stuff really pushes me to seed the development and kind of just try and go for some colony play. So I do take Isabella, I do take Taj Mahal. At the moment I have 5 resource production, which is actually quite a bit, and I think that I can afford Taj Mahal under most circumstances that I wouldn't be able to, just because of Roman roads and Isabella production. Also the extra blue tokens help a lot, and I have the engineering genius that I want to use as well. So from here I increase food production, take the breakthrough because I still haven't had enough science. There's a good chance that I shouldn't take this breakthrough and just play out this printing press or something. I'm only going to be on 4 civil actions for a long time, so spending any extra actions to take yellow cards is actually really tough on my civil actions in general. At the same time though, I haven't had a lot of science production. I just lost my extra from switching out Boudica, trading my science production for resource production. So it's kind of close. But I do end up trying to take the breakthrough because I figure that I've missed out on a lab for about 2 or 3 turns, and the extra breakthrough will help out in that regard. Now, I leave some good cards for Genghisip. Well, mostly just this Code of Laws. So, finishes a Legion, takes Code of Laws, and starts building Library. Which makes sense, because I don't think it's really worth to take anything else. He's on the same kind of position that I am, not a lot of civil actions, just do the things that kind of matter. Alright, now that the deck is flipped, finishes Stonehenge, and then just goes for Iron. And then also has a Legion. So everyone being on Legion is actually kind of nice because it doesn't really mean that no one's really projecting any strength here, basically. No Knights have showed up, no Swordsmen have showed up either, actually, as well. So just being on like 5 strength, while I still might get hit by some strength-based events, it's not like people can really get too much stronger. So I'm pretty happy in this situation where my strength is at. Sean goes for open borders with me, which I really appreciate since I was only on 2 military actions. But you can see why he wouldn't want to do it with Sun Tzu and Joan, since they're generally more militaristic. It does look like Mushan wants to stay very weak with, or very low military with Nostradamus. After going for monarchy, he has actually really good civil action and military action bank. Anyways, I cede a territory here. I'm saving Vast and Inhabited. I forget which territory that I did cede, to be honest. I think it was Wealthy 1. And part of the reason that I'm thinking that I want to go for Wealthy first is because I don't really need extra yellow bank at the moment. So I think that Wealthy is the safer seed. I'm going to want to save Vast for the Suez if I actually get it. So it didn't really matter too much between Wealthy and Inhabited, but I just think that the extra resources could help my economy earlier than the extra yellow bank, especially since I have an extra right now. So I develop printing press, increase pop twice, go for a warrior, and the reason I build this warrior is because I want to keep my legion in case colonies come up, and then I just take drama as well. So I'm really kind of leaning into the whole Shakespeare idea. So I still haven't built the printing press yet. It's been kind of hard to do a lot of stuff on 4 civil actions. And I actually hold off on playing this breakthrough because I haven't seen Dark Ages yet. And I'm kind of hedging essentially against it. I don't really need more than 5. I don't need more science next turn anyways. So I think that this is fine. Plus having 1 more strength puts me above Mushan and Genghisip for any strength events. But it's really just so that if there's any colonies, I can actually send 1 without being too weak. So kind of set up for colonization, kind of trying to set up for Shakespeare at this point. No one else really has that infrastructure for it. So I think no matter what, I'll be pretty safe on the whole Shakespeare front. And then I also still have a bunch of resources that I can dump into Taj Mahal if I'm going to have corruption issues. Okay, moving on to Genghisip's turn. I leave Iron here, and since he opens Ology Ancients, I actually didn't get the sign. But I was expecting something about finishing Library, taking Iron, and playing Code Walls. I'm actually a little surprised that he goes for this Theocracy. It's kind of a lot of science to have and not take the Iron for 1 civil action. So I was pretty surprised in that situation. I would have been actually pretty happy for Genghisip to take the Iron instead. I didn't really want the others to get it. Just because I felt like, honestly, that Genghisip's position after going for Theocracy kind of ate a lot of science unnecessarily, and yeah, I was just didn't think that his position would be super strong on 4 civil actions for being on this government form basically. But I guess he does it because he wants to get stronger and wants like the most simple way to do so. So I can definitely understand where he's coming from. I was just a little surprised that you want to spend 6 science going for Theocracy instead of Code of Laws into Iron the following turn. Anyways, blue opens Call to Arms. Of course, I'm going to be weak, which makes sense. rebuilt this legion, and then honestly, basically just does normal-ish stuff. You're gonna want to finish Machu Picchu pretty early. His civil action bank is much better, is good this time, and can kind of supplement his science with alchemy upcoming. Alternatively, instead of going for Machu Picchu this turn, could maybe go for the alchemies first, so that you have the ability to switch out your government sooner and stuff. But it's possible that, you know, there's like Dark Ages and things. He doesn't want to like build up his science before it comes out. So I'm not really sure which one's 100% better. It's kind of close, you know. Machu Picchu, obviously you want to finish early, but alchemies you want to finish early too. So there's a lot of contestation essentially between these cards. Alright, now Mushan is going to open Dark Ages. Everybody loses about the same. And then he goes for Irrigation. Not exactly sure what happened actually. Oh, Pestilence. He had to destroy a farm. So he goes for Irrigation so that you can kind of supplement the Pestilence that hit earlier. Did forget about that. That's kind of why people had to rebuild their army and stuff. Copies Legion for future turns, and actually lets the iron fall off. So I don't know. I was very surprised that nobody wanted this iron. Honestly, I'm still surprised. I kind of forgot that it fell off. But I'm not going to be going for it because I plan on going for Suez. So I'm kind of happy in a sense that there's not going to be a lot of resource production coming from my opponents. The problem is it means that if I don't get Suez early, I'm going to have to compete against the multiple others for a possible coal. But in the moment, you know, if I'm the one who has relatively low resource production, it'll definitely switch in H2, but I don't want to have to compete against people with too much. Alright, now that this cartography is in the row, we've already established that... Alright, I must have been confused from last turn. I thought that I seeded Wealthy last turn, and it must have been a different colony. Like Historic, I think. It might have been Historic. So, because I have Wealthy in my hand. Now that I do have cartography, now that I do have the colonization bonus, it seems completely appropriate to just go full in on the colonization stuff. I have 3 colonies. I know that 2 are in the deck. So I'm just going to go for it, essentially. I see the Inhabited, open up the Developed. This is one that I really, really want, so I spend 3 resources for it. Additionally, because I had so many resources and not enough actions this turn, and that I was unhappy, I was very happy that I was able to spend out resources that were basically going to be for my corruption anyways. So I feel like I got very lucky to open up a territory here. So it basically gets me out of corruption. It's like basically the perfect colony to get me out of corruption. If it was like Inhabited or Vast, which obviously it couldn't be, I'd still have corruption here. So all I need to do is build 1 library, and then I can take and develop cartography. And now that I know that Dark Age is out, I can use the breakthrough. So I feel pretty happy with the setup that I have. I know I have 2 territories in the next deck. I can easily build more warriors to colonize them. Nobody has very good strength because Sun Tzu never had the opportunity to do any night shenanigans. And I feel pretty comfortable if I were to eat some events. If things like Uncertain Borders came up, I have a decent yellow bank right now. So I do plan on being weak for a while, but at the same time, I feel like I'm doing strong things this game. And then another reason the colony helped a lot is because I don't actually have any happy faces, so not being in consumption prevents this rebellion from hurting me. So if I flip rebellion instead of developed territory last turn, I would have only had 1 action, and that would have been terrible. So I got really, really lucky with those flips. Nothing special really. Switches to solid aim, and then just finishes Machu Picchu, which I think totally makes sense. Grabs Monarchy with his last level action, and then wants to get a little stronger. So this should be telling to me that there are strength events, or telling to everybody that there are strength events. So even though there are strength events, I do seed my territories. I kind of have to. I've put myself in a situation where I kind of have to. If these knights were on 1, I'd probably start to try and go for them and get stronger. The problem is that I'm at 4 CA, and just going for 2 is a little bit too much for me. So I'm pretty much planning on building more printing presses, building like 1 or 2 more warriors, and then finishing Taj Mahal, something in that order. Well, always trying to have a little bit more than a legion. Barbarians Genghisip. Build another warrior, increase food production, and then start Taj Mahal, since these are things I'm going to need to do eventually. I just had a lot of things to do. I really couldn't afford to grab something for 2, essentially. Inhabited, so haven't really drawn any defense cards, so I keep having to use Isabel's for extra resources. It's expensive, but I think it's pretty worth it. My buildings are cheap. I still had 5 resource reduction throughout H1, so even though each of these colonies cost me 6 total resources, one of them got me out of corruption, and this one I think is very worth it. So now, even with just these colonies and not vast, I already have 4 extra yellow tokens between my wonders and colonies, and 2 extra blue tokens. So I definitely have enough like extra population to support, you know, Shakespeare stuff if I'm able to get that going. All right, Genghisip goes for Himeji. Wants to use his military actions in age 1, gets a little bit stronger, and now we start H2. So I have pretty much resigned to being the weakest, and I get hit by Arena Terror. That just happens. It was expected. So I'm just going to have to deal with these kind of strength issues. And then hitting by Raiders as well. Mushan goes for Iron. He passed up Iron on 1 earlier to go for Iron on 2. I think it's just kind of funny. No real comment other than that. But that's just what happened. And then copies the upgraded Legion. I don't have any happy faces. Everybody else has 1, so I don't win out because I don't have a happy face. I did seed Vast there, I believe. Still wanted to push the deck. I didn't want to see new deposits yet, basically because in this situation, you know, I don't have Iron going. I only have 4 resource production. I don't really want to accelerate other people's plans a little bit more. I want the game to be kind of slow and not have a lot of resource production. So seeding new deposits means people's economies gets better, and I didn't really want to do that, especially since I'm not the one with Iron and stuff. And at the same time, I wanted to push the deck into my colonies. It is kind of sketchy to seed the only colony that I have, since there's still Suez and stuff. But I really wanted to push the deck in a way that was that, you know, I could get as many colonies as I could in the next coming cycle. And I just couldn't seed new deposits here. So I had to deal with the Reign of Terror. Rebuild this for colonization purposes, and then I just finish off Taj Mahal. And then I grab the Knights. Still think they're pretty useful, even without Sun Tzu tactic. Knights and Swordsmen would be ideal, but again, forcible actions, I can't really grab Swordsman or anything. Genghisip copies the upgraded legion. Some strength stuff, you know. Goes for rifleman. And then gets quite a bit stronger with that. It's definitely trying to pressure my strength. And then Mushan opens wealthy, and I only bid 1 unit and 1 resource. I don't even think that the card is worth it. And the reason that I don't bid the card is because blue actually has 13 strength, and I wouldn't be able to defend without it. I didn't want to pay 3 more resources for wealthy. Like, I didn't want to bid 1 unit, pay 3 resources, and to get wealthy. So I just bid the 1. But in the end, I actually lose this colony, even though I probably could have really won it if I wanted to. I just didn't think wealthy was very good for everyone else because I didn't really have, you know, nobody really has a lot of food production. So losing a unit just for this amount of resources I didn't think would be too valuable for others. And as it turns out, this is very expensive for blue. He spends a rifleman and a warrior, which is 6 resources in itself, and 2 population, and 2 cards. Which I think is definitely overly expensive and actually ends up being the weakest first cycle. Mushan takes the swordsman, which I did really want, but, you know, of course he would take it with Great Wall. In this situation, I still don't want to see new deposits. I can't seed refugees. So I figure blue has 1 card. I'm kind of thinking that maybe he's trying to cite Suez, you know, maybe this is a colony, and he'll try to go for Suez with, you know, autonomous territory or something. Or like some other good one, like Inhabited 2 or something. And I know that it's not the case, because I think he would have used a defense card. I figured that for some reason that this is somehow a defense card. I can still get it out, and then Genghisip can aggress when he has no cards left. I also plan on getting another military action with warfare. I think I mentioned this earlier that I do like this card in general. I have a good amount of science. I don't have a government to spend on, so I figure I'll have 3 MA anyways, and I might as well go for it. Okay, so take the warfare, pop, and then go for 1 more printing press. This way I still have enough for any government that comes up. And then so basically my plan from here on is to get the Suez, which is going to take a lot of my turn since I have so few actions. Get the Suez and then go for dramas at some point. Get the Suez, build it, and then go for dramas after, actually, is the whole point. But my science production is pretty decent. Culture production is getting up there. And I would say that everything else is at pretty decent production. One of my issues, though, is that I'm still on 4 CA, and this is going to continue to be an issue for quite a bit, or has been an issue for quite a bit, and will continue to be, because getting wonders is very, very expensive at this point. Genghisip goes for the enslave, and then I think this really, really hurts, since now it's really difficult to rebuild that infantry unit to get stronger. So I kind of feel like that it just really wasn't worth it to go for that wealthy, you know? It would have been really good for me because I lack resources and I could always use more blue cubes with bronze, but yeah, it just felt a little bit too expensive for blue to go down on this turn. So Genghisip picks up some cards, finishes Magi, and upgrades to get a corruption. So now that, actually I'll just stop later. So blue actually has to destroy a mine to get his strength back up. Can go for method next turn. Urban growth, reserves, of course. Just more cards. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he has a wealthy, but I do feel like that turn like really set him back a lot. It would have been nice to go for something else and not destroy your mind that turn. But it is what it is at this point. And now that he's Newton, now he's going to get methods and architectures, he's going to have a lot of resource production and science production and a lot of civil actions really soon. So I think there's a really good chance that he'll, catch up really quickly. Foray is open, so another strength event for the most part. Goes for method, which seems great. Efficient upgrade for the next one. All right, now I'm in a situation where I have Suez and I really kind of need these riflemen also. This is the last copy of Rifleman since Blue already has it. So I kind of feel like I need to grab it this turn. Yeah. And then I also know that one of these is a colony. One of these is vast. So I'm thinking about seeding for that as well. And then there's also the possibility that I can go for Darwin in this case instead of Shakespeare, because it would already bring me to three culture production at the cost of one resource production, and also give me civil actions that I would need. So, sorry, you can see that there's a Republic on the row as well. But if I take and develop Republic, I can only grab Suez, and I can't grab Rifleman. So at this point, I spent a lot of time figuring out if I wanted to seed, what I wanted to take, if I really, really, really needed these Riflemen or not, or if I really needed the Suez or not. And I'm honestly not too sure about this turn at all. I do end up seeding. I kind of do it just because I want the priority of being able to have the first turn on a colony if it comes up. Then I'm also thinking that maybe if it's something else, I just can gain a little bit of information on it. I'm not sure about this seed if it's good or not, but I end up doing it anyways. Seeding civil unrest, and I open up the vast. I only win it for one warrior, but I actually spend one resource as well to do this. And the reason I do is that I can build a warrior to get out of corruption, and then take Suez and Riflemen to not have corruption. So paying one resource to save two, basically. Or saves one overall. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I wanted this Suez at all, just because I don't have a colony at this point. So I'm not sure if this was the right play. Because I could have gone for like Republic or Riflemen, or like Republic and Riflemen, or Conmon and Riflemen or something, and just, start going for dramas or something instead. Because the thing about Suez is that it's kind of expensive to build. It takes, on my production, 3 full turns to do. So I'm a little skeptical about it. And then it also delays getting a government upgrade. Very unsure about it, but it's what I end up doing. I still feel like it's possible that I wanted to go for Conmon or Republic and Riflemen instead, and then just put resources into dramas. Because instead of going for Suez, I could just get like 2 pairs or something, 2 pairs of these pretty easily, and I could spend it takes a lot of civil actions to actually like do Shakespeare stuff. So I feel like by doing this, I'm actually falling behind a lot. But at the same time, people are Blue's threatening a lot of production, a lot of science, a lot of civil actions. Red is also kind of threatening a lot of science as well. I don't know why I say threaten, but it just means that they're planning to have really big economies. And I need like a relatively decent sized economy to keep up as well. So I do draw a colony. I actually think that this is the worst one to draw. I currently have 7 extra yellows already. I'm not really sure that Vast losing another blue token is the way that I want to go. But I'm happy to have a colony than not have one. So I guess that's just it. That's just the price I pay. Goes for trade agreement, and then Nobel, which seems like a really good option. And then takes efficient upgrade to start going for coals again soon. So Genghisip having really a lot of science, not a lot of resource production yet, but a lot of science means that eventually his economy will catch up, because that's just what science does. It lets you upgrade a lot more easily and faster. So I know that blue and green are both going to have a lot of science production incoming. So that's what happens for the most part. So one turn later, blue's economy looks really big and has a lot of actions, has a lot of science, and has basically a lot of strength potential if he can get some military attacks. Sean goes for the mine, grabs cannons because he has Great Wall, goes for swordsman, and just gets out of corruption. So in this turn, I seeded. I'll talk about what I seeded, but you probably know already. So in this turn, I'm thinking about a couple things. I'm thinking that I want a government upgrade, that I want to finish Suez next turn, and that I don't want to be completely susceptible to a devastating war over technology. And technology is very specific here. I haven't seen any war at all. I wouldn't care about war over territory because I have so many extra yellows. But if a war over technology came, I really need this warfare. I don't necessarily need this cartography, but I really need this warfare. And I wouldn't be able to defend very well without it. So I'm thinking that I want these cannons. Part of the reason that I'm thinking I want these cannons is because I'm pretty sure Genghisip will go for the cannons as well, which would leave blue's military potential a lot lower. Just because he'd only have riflemen, and there's only one, or it's hard. I mean, there's only a couple of good tactics with knights, and I happen to have one of them. So it'd have to just be only classic army if he doesn't have cannons, basically. So I want to do a lot, basically. I want to not be super susceptible to wars. I want to not have to spend cards for aggressions as well. And I still want to finish Suez. And one of the big issues is that I don't have any useful yellow cards on the row. So that comes back to what I seeded. And I don't know if it's correct or not, but I seeded new deposits here. The reason I seeded new deposits is because it should come up before my next turn. If I spend resources, I'll still have 4 extra from new deposits. So I'll probably be able to finish Suez. And then that way I can go for whatever colony that I have. Hopefully it's not Vast, but I'll use it regardless. So I want to have some kind of strength threatening potential. So what I do is that I end up going for scientific breakthrough flips. Go for Republic. And again, this is also questionable. Conmon would arguably be better for me, but the big swing factor for me was that Republic was on 1 civil action. Uh-oh, I can't I can't click. Okay. I grab the cannons, develop them, and then build one. and then take justice system. So I'm also not sure about taking cannons out of all things, or building a cannon out of all things. It might have been better to go for riflemen and upgrade instead. One of the reasons I went for cannons is because I'm kind of hoping to draw like fortifications or something. I really feel like Mushan has defensive army as well, so if he reveals defensive army, at least I can have 2 cannons and 2 outdated ones. But yeah, maybe riflemen would be better because it would be easier to upgrade I'd be able to spend more military actions sooner with them. And one of the reasons I go for cannons also is because it's kind of perfect with Suez. If I get 4 more resources, I'll have 11 to finish Suez next turn. And then even though I can't really afford Justice System, I just think that the blue cubes will be extremely necessary since I don't have a wealthy. Right now I only have 2 extra blue cubes, but if I go for vast, I'll have only 1 extra. And then being on bronze with 7 resource protection is pretty difficult on your blue bank. One of the reasons that I'm able to stay out of corruption right now is because I have Isabella and 2 extra blue tokens. But I have 1 less because of this tack at the same time. So again, not too sure about this turn. Felt like it was very confusing. But this is what I ended up deciding. I'm thinking that in the future that I probably should have. Looking at this turn again, I probably should have just increased population instead of take the justice system. But this is what I end up doing. So it is what it is. Keep the vast and the tactic. More food for everybody. So now Genghisip is going to have quite a bit. Resource production. And then the new deposits does hit. And this is the big reason why I don't really want it, is because everyone's going to have a really supercharged turn next turn. So, more strength. Kind of just do things that are essential at some point. And then finishes Great Wall. Upgrade. Just upgrade stuff. Alright, so this is a point where I kind of have to look at possible strength issues. I'm looking at Genghisip. I'm looking at Wawrzyniec, and I'm looking at Mushan. And if a war hits, a war over technology hits or something, and blue has classic army with cavalrymen, I basically just have to accept it. He's going to have to disband or something for it, but I just have to accept that there's nothing I can really do about it. Mushan, on the other hand, his resources are actually not very high right now, so even if he has defensive army, he can only go for 1. And Genghisip, I think he's just going to spend pretty much no matter what. Doesn't have enough military actions for anything. He's just going to upgrade his resource production here. So I'm not too worried about blue I'm not too worried about Genghisip or Mushan, but I am very worried about blue's potential strength. He has a lot of resources, enough happiness, and enough military actions to basically run the table against me. But I did draw 1 war over tech, so it makes me worry a little bit less. And I just feel like if he had all that, then, well, I just can't really do much about it. So I decide to get really, really greedy here, since I'm not necessarily too worried about the next strength potentials for the next for my opponents. So I'm going to try and do something cute with my turn, which is offer this scientific cooperation to blue, because I figured he's guaranteed to accept. And the reason that I want to do that is because I want to be able to get out dramas with another technology. And I go for the justice system, which I think is extremely greedy. and I'm not sure that it's actually worth it, but I really feel like I needed the extra blue cubes, and you'll see kind of why at the end of my turn. I still need to develop these dramas because I still haven't had Shakespeare out yet. Finish Suez, colonize Vast, and I only have enough civil actions left to get wave. And if you're going to look at my blue bank, what happens at the end of his turn, you'll kind of see why that I really felt like I needed justice system out. But I'm kind of regretting it because it's very, very likely that I should have just developed these riflemen. Because I know that I'm not going to be able to next turn. I have 5 science, and these only cost 4. But for sure blue is going to do at least 2 techs. So I knew that kind of going in, and yeah, it doesn't feel super great at the moment, because I know that I kind of leave myself vulnerable next turn, since I won't be able to get that much stronger without getting these riflemen out. But like I said, I didn't think that my opponents will be able to do that much. I think that at most, if anything happens, blue might end with railroad stuff at 23, and I could just build like 2 cannons or something and be at 17, and I'd be relatively comfortable there. Take the wave because I still need resources. 8's good, but I still need a lot of resources to kind of keep up for right now. I actually do feel in a relatively good spot, even though this is like relatively tenuous at the moment. But I think that in general I'm pretty safe. I have my maximum setup for the most part. I have good resource production, good culture production. It'll be even better soon. And I'm like very certain that Mushan has defensive army that I can copy at some point. Even if I don't, I can still go for potential modern army or something, or positional army. I'll have a lot of extra guys. I have 11 extra yellows, so I should have a lot of extra population to put wherever I want to. I just have to survive the next couple cycles in order to really, for this to really pay off. Anyways, I do draw historic, which makes me really sad because I'd actually prefer historic over vast, to be honest. I still have no happiness, but I didn't really like the vast territory really hurts my blue bank, which I need more than my yellow. This I felt was really poorly timed. This was really, really good timing for blue to get international agreement here. This really supercharges his turn, I think, because now he can get the railroad and his food production in the same turn. And one of the things about the railroad turn that I looked at was that he still wouldn't be very threatening because he wouldn't be having a lot of population. But just being able to do both, it's so much. Yeah, because if he went for the railroad, he could have finished it. So grab railroad for 3, finish it. He'd only be able to just take the selective breeding and not be able to do his food production yet. So I think that really helped us turn a lot by being able to start his production right away. Ends at 23 though, which is totally fine. And then part of the reason that this international agreement hurts is because blue taking extra cards ended the age earlier than I thought it would, and Churchill also came up. So what I said before about not having enough resources, suddenly now Mushan has enough to build 2 cannons and reveal the tactic, putting up to 29. So from what I initially thought, Mushan's top strength being like basically 6-9 lower, I thought Mushan could get to like 20-ish defensive army. This was very surprising and really made me regret playing this justice system. Also, to make matters worse, in the age transition, I don't know exactly why this is, but Isabella and my open door and my naval trade agreement pact do not run out simultaneously. So I ended up losing one resource, even though I have a blue token here from the pact ending. I don't know if that's intended, but I really feel like I should have had an extra resource here. So now in this situation, there's nothing I can do. I can't defend against Mushan. I don't have a tactic that uses cannons. So yeah, I just have to kind of eat whatever aggression he has. At the very least, I can defend against Genghisip and blue. But this 29 is much, much higher than I was expecting. And I just feel like there was pretty much nothing. That was just like a really unfortunate series of events for me. And I felt like I was very comfortable right up until that second. I just kind of can't believe that's how it came down. So I still go for. So I have to end this pact, of course, because I don't have any signs. I still go for Shakespeare. I do this weird. Ordering because I would be in corruption if I do the other way, another way. Me losing a resource actually meant a lot for me because I would have liked to build one more warrior here. But because I lost the resource, I can't, I just don't have the resource for it. I could have not built this pair, or I could have not built this theater, and maybe that would have been better. But I'm just not sure. Like, yeah. I feel like I'm just in a tight spot here, and I'm feeling pretty unlucky that that series of events happened. So instead of not building a theater, I decided to just take the reserves instead. And this will give me 10 if I can basically eat any aggression that's not a spy or an occupy, and I'll be able to go for rifleman next turn. So basically that's what I'm hoping for. Mushan didn't have like a ton of resources, a ton of military cards. So I'm just hoping that he didn't have the option to get spy, basically. Just go for the reserves, and main objective is to just build these really cheap buildings, get my culture production up, kind of catch up to Genghisip quickly, and kind of hopefully take this away. But because I'm on Republic and not Conmon, I'm not going to be drawing any cards anytime soon. Ravage the time. I can hit one of these. Doesn't really matter which, to be honest. Yeah, the biggest issue for me is losing the blue token, to be honest. So, Genghisip has to lose his library, which I think is fine since he has still plenty of side production. Goes for team sports, and I'm going to start building towards that defensive army that Mushan has built. Blue goes for an aggression against me. I actually am a little annoyed that he did, because if I was at 18, I think that I would have. I don't think that he would have done that. But it is what it is. I decided to spend 2 cards instead of 3. I could have I could have defended with a defense card and 2 non-defense cards. But I feel like by showing 2, it shows that this is probably a defense card anyways. And I just want the ability to maybe seed if possible, if I really, really need to. And the rest of the game, I feel like a bluff is enough for the most part. And there's no way I can defend against Mushan anyways. So I wasn't going to hold on to it and absolutely show that I didn't have 3. I also kind of wanted this military alliance card as well, just to have a political action next turn. So yeah, I mean, that raid wouldn't have hurt very much, except for the fact that it takes a lot of actions to rebuild it. I don't really have a lot of resources at the moment. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to defend it, but I just felt like I couldn't quite afford to let these destroy right now. Plus, I'll be able to defend against both green and blue next turn, and can't defend against red anyways, Mushan. All right, sorry. And then now blue upgrades food production, also starts planning on going for the defensive army. Now Mushan's turn. And he does have a spy. So I am in huge trouble here. He finishes 2 armies. So I basically can't defend the next turn either, no matter what I do. Picks up some cards and takes a rev idea, which I really needed. I decided to offer the military alliance to Mushan since I cannot defend against him pretty much no matter what. There's still a rev idea on the board, so I have a chance. I basically need to take this rev idea. I need to get strong enough that the others can't aggress me. And I still want to, build some cheap dramas and stuff as well. But my whole plan at this point is to take as many rev ideas and resources as I can. Just try and build defensive armies. And there's pretty much nothing else after that. That's just like my entire game. I think I make a misstep here though. I decide to build 2 warriors here. And then go up to 24. But instead of building 2 warriors, I should have probably built 1 and then just copied this tactic. That would have given me, I was only using the outdated legion, so that still would have given me quite a bit extra strength. I didn't do that initially because I would go into corruption in this line, but it actually probably would have made a huge difference if I spent my military actions by spending all my military actions this turn. And the biggest reason that I need to spend all my military actions is because when the others are threatening wars, I basically need to spend as many turns as I can upgrading riflemen, and building warriors is the most inefficient thing that I can do with my MA. So if I had only built 1 warrior and copied the tactic and took corruption, then in like 2 turns or something, or 3 turns, I could have more defensive armies and stuff to be able to defend. But as of right now, next turn, I'm only threatening to get 1 upgraded defensive army and then copy the tactic. And then the next turn after that, I still can only upgrade 1 more because I only have 3 military actions. But if instead I did not build the warrior, in 2 turns I could have 3 full defensive armies defending, and that makes a big difference. So I didn't really plan ahead for the very, very super long-term game. Opens population of science, goes for the Air Force that came up, and then copies the defensive army. So now he's at 37. Opens civil unrest, takes the other Air Force that came up, and then also copies the defensive army. So there's a very specific theme here on whose tactic we're all going for. Goes for oil with the railroad eventually. Thinking about oil with the railroad, but develops the opera first for hand space. It seems fine to go for some culture production. It's very low on that. One of the things is that I do have a lot of culture production, but I don't have a big lead. They don't necessarily have to go all in on a war just yet. And then Mushan has a second spy, and I just feel crushed. I can still get out the riflemen, but there's a big reason why the second spy is a big deal. And it's because if I look very far forward into the turns, I really need Air Force as well to defend. And by taking this 4 science and delaying 1 turn, the only way that I can really get it out is in time is if I get another rev idea, the last one. There's no Churchill, so I can't really get any science boosts. And this is actually very, very, very crushing spy to have both of them. Because I know that with Air Force, with another defensive army and another Air Force, I'm not going to be able to defend blue at all in any meaningful fashion. Um, right now, I can still defend relatively well against Genghisip, just because he doesn't have enough military actions. But I just have to look at blue at this point, and I don't have the MA for it, and I don't have the technologies to be able to defend what I plan on incoming. So this was a super heartbreaking spy to come out. Yeah. Also, it canceled the military alliance, but it was really just so I didn't have to be weak for that one turn. Okay, Mushan goes for civil service, democracy, military theory, and still has enough for 2 Air Force next turn if it comes out. But he doesn't have the military actions to declare war with it, so I'm really only worried about Blue's military potential. So now I copy the defense army. I do take the Air Force, so Mushan can't get it. It's not. There's not really a ton of possibility of me actually being able to develop it, but I still kind of soldier on and see what I can do. Upgrade twice. Now I'm high enough that I can defend against everybody besides Genghisip. Genghisip probably thinks that I have a defense card though, the way that I played it. So the only way that he'd be able to get it through is if he sucks. And then the library takes some corruption. Basically, if I took corruption because taking corruption this turn, or because I didn't take corruption last turn, I take corruption this turn. So I kind of wish that I did it the other way around to use my military actions more efficiently. Then I build a printing press because there's a chance that I can get Air Force out in the next coming turns. But it doesn't feel great. I don't feel like I have a good position at this point. I honestly don't think that I can win at this point at all. I think there's basically no way that Blue doesn't have a war. He drew 3 every single turn. Even if he doesn't have one, right now it's like something like a 90 plus 95% plus percent chance that if he draws 3 every turn from the beginning that he has a war. And I just know that I can't defend hard enough. All right, Genghisip goes and sacks and actually gets the intervention through. He didn't need to sack, but my bluff kind of worked in that sense. But I'm actually kind of fine with it. Alright, so now Genghisip also has enough military actions to possibly defend a war, declare a war now with double Air Force. Would need a hybrid war though in order to make it work. But it's still a good amount of strength and 2 armies plus 1 Air Force. Honestly, it's more than I can really do right now because I can only upgrade 3 times. So I wouldn't be able to have 3 full defensive armies. If I had 3 full defensive armies as a possibility next turn, then maybe it would be a different story in terms of how I feel about this game. All right, Blue Seeds, economic progress, which again, really bad for me, really good for Blue. Goes for Manhattan and Air Force, finishes Manhattan right away. So this feels very telling that he wants to get stronger. He had so many resources that he could have gone for like 2 operas or something instead, but because he's going for strength, it's a very, very single-minded idea. So I essentially imagine 2 consecutive wars coming up in the next couple turns. He doesn't even need to use defensive army if he has a patriotism. If he has modern army, completes it. He can still war that way as well. And then freedom movement. So I'm actually super dejected on this freedom movement. It does help me possibly defend with up to 3. It saves me military action, but that's really all it does. But for other people, it can mean a huge boost in their army. So this means that Genghisip can now war with 2 air forces. That Blue can war with 2 modern armies plus 1 air force. And I feel absolutely like I should resign in this turn, actually. Um, Although, even though nothing has come up, I actually really feel like I could resign here. And yeah, because if I look at the situation, you know, like I'm going to be warred upon, and everyone's culture is close enough to me that I don't think that I could ever win at this point. Um, like I can't defend a war against green, I can't defend a war against blue, and if neither of them have it, that doesn't make any sense at all. So yeah, it's basically what it comes down to. But I don't know. I decided to keep playing. There's a chance that I can come in third, maybe. If blue has a small war against me, but like a huge war against somebody else, maybe I can still come in third. So I still try to put up the best defense I can. Upgrade, upgrade, upgrade. I'm the strongest for once. Take Fleming, reserves. So I have enough resources for one more army next turn at least. But that's still only 15 more strength, so I'm only looking at 62 total. This would be such a different story if I had 4 more science and I can defend with 2 air force next turn. If I can go up 22 more strength, 69 is actually like quite a reasonable amount to defend for. Genghisip goes for this war against me, and like I said, he can only do this with freedom movement. It's actually smaller than I anticipated because he switches out for Pierre. He didn't actually quite need to do that, but he does get 2 extra production. And the reason I didn't think he needed to do that is because I can end at 62 also. But it basically means that he plans on sacking for the extra. But this war could not have come without the freedom movement. So I was pretty dejected to see that first one. And then the next one's also expected. The war against me. This one super expected. I can't defend very high. But what was unexpected was that this is only a war for 77. I really thought that modern army could have come out this turn and would have made a much bigger war, and he'd be in the high 80s. And then the worst part about this is that I know that the age is not going to end this coming turn too, so I can't even get higher than 77 the following turn afterwards. So yeah, running into some issues here. Mushan starts to upgrade his military as well. Basically threatens some age 3 tactics. Leaves a lot of resources to respond. So this is what happens. I have the most culture before the wars resolve, but after that I'm going to lose quite a bit. Genghisip's going to come out ahead, Mushan will be second, and then blue should be in the third position after all the dust is settled for that most part. But I look at my culture, I look at my ability to go for impacts, and again, I very seriously consider resigning again. And I know that like a lot of people would think of it as like not a great like sportsmanship thing. I think that resigning is totally fine. It just forces people who play in a singularly militaristic style to have an alternative route. And basically my idea at this point was, how much am I considering for like the positions for the other players? Because I'm pretty sure if I resign here, there's like a really good chance that blue comes in third, green comes in first, and red takes second. But I decide to play on here because I do the math a little bit, I realize the war against me from blue is not that big. I can still get to 62, right? And I still get to 62. And losing 20 means that blue is only 81 plus 7, so he actually is a little bit behind red, especially because red has so many resources left, can spend a lot to get more culture with multimedias or something. I think that if a second war should come up, it should probably be against Mushan, assuming that he has an upgrade to this army. And even if he doesn't have an upgrade to this army, he can still do it with like some pro sports or something and just get a little bit stronger that way. Because warring at like 85 should be good enough against even 2 of any H2 army. I basically think that Mushan's max potential is somewhere in the 70s, so warring at 85 seems good enough, I think. But I could be mathing incorrectly for Mushan. Like maybe he can go for 3 rockets or something, 4 rockets, and positional army. So that'd be plus 20, plus 18 or something. Something in that range. But yeah, basically I think that I'm kind of hoping that Blue's next war, if he has one, is big enough with like double modern army or something that that it doesn't matter what I am, because I don't think that I can do anything to win that's in my power anymore. So I just defend as hard as I can, hope that the decisions that the other players make mean that I come in second, but I really can't do much else. Genghisip sacks, of course, to get the 7 culture swing. Rebuilds the swordsman. And then... oh, because he can build the next... I was wondering why he just didn't build another arena here, but yeah, he can just build it with urban growth next turn. Alright, age ends. Blue takes 20 and then declares hybrid war on me. Again, I'm not really sure that it matters against me. I couldn't do anything in terms of culture anyways. I'm very low. This war is actually costing him the 8 from the Olympic Games as well, so he knows that my max is plus 1 more Air Force. So I was a little uncertain why that he went for the war against me here. I've already lost, so I didn't really feel like there was any particular reason to do this. But okay, Blue goes for the war against me. It's like really whatever at this point. Goes to 82 strength, and then now that Mushan doesn't have to worry about it, he just goes for enormous culture production. Yeah. Then I disband a bunch. I'm gonna have terrible impacts. There's nothing I can do. So yeah, go up to 73. I mean, he did win 9, but he lost 8 from the Olympic Games, so still doesn't really feel like the war should have been directed towards me. I don't know though. Maybe it was correct. I feel like he could have just ceded or something. Would have been better. Aggression would have been better, so I don't know. Oh. Colonies don't do anything. All right, and then finishes out with a Nobel Prize. So at the end of this turn, obviously super low. If blue went for a war against red, I feel like maybe I would have had a chance, but maybe decided it was too risky. I'm really not sure. I mean, I think that going for the war against me just didn't matter to the result of this game, and possibly cost him a chance at winning. Because instead of going for that war, he could have just maybe seeded and built more operas or something instead, and that would have been more culture. The hybrid war was just unnecessary part to end this game. But I'd already lost at this point anyway, so it didn't really matter too much to me. I was really just debating about that resignation the turn before. But it's very close between blue and red, and then it looks like Genghisip will probably take this game completely. Back to culture. I still win that. That was, yeah. Back to happiness. I get crushed by this. Back to strength. Surprisingly, I'm good at this. And last one's variety, which blue should be slightly better than. Oh, it's actually quite cool. And yeah, this ends in a 1 point difference between red and blue. Between Mushan and blue. Yeah, basically in this game, I felt like I was in a really good spot until that very last turn / first turn in H3, where the strength gain was a lot more than I expected, and the production gain was a lot more than I expected. A lot of events happened where people's economy was extremely accelerated, and I didn't get as much value from it. It's very possible that turn where I put the new deposits in was extremely bad. And I could have just tried to gamble by not building that cannon earlier or whatever. Me developing this justice system really cost me in the end as well. But at the time, I really felt like I had just enough leniency. I felt like I had just enough leniency to be able to do those things. But you can see that it really cost me in the end. If I didn't have so much to worry about at that, if I didn't have Mushan spies basically to worry about, then I think this game would have been very easy. But because of how the round turned out to end up being that that the events happened in the way that they happened, if they were like in a different order, then I think I would have actually like completely been in a pretty commanding lead this game, just because I would have had so much population in order to defend. I would have been able to just generate a lot of culture, and I just don't think their strength would have been as threatening, basically. But it ended up being about one extra, or like 1 to 1.5 turns behind where I thought I would be, just because of how the acceleration happened for both blue and red. And because Mushan spied me, it really brought me a turn back again, and which led to Genghisip being able to be aggressive against me as well. Because basically at no point should I not have been able to defend Genghisip. It was just that with Mushan, with my loss of science, I just wasn't able to do anything with it. I wasn't able to defend as well. But I should have been able. But I had the resources, I had the military actions to be able to keep up. I just didn't have the science on that one turn. Anyways, congratulations to Mushan, or sorry, Genghisip, and for winning this game. Honestly, I'm actually a little surprised that blue ended up taking second here. I was definitely surprised that he had just enough culture to be able to do it. I thought Mushan would have had much better impacts, but it ended up being, very it ended up being not so great for him in terms of like architecture, harmony, that kind of stuff. Actually, I'm not even sure what I'm talking about. I just, for some reason, I assumed that the impacts would just be a lot better for red than they were for blue, but they ended up being very similar. That's basically it. So, yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching. At this point in the tournament, so at this point in the tournament, with this number of games completed, I don't exactly know what the scores were, but I believe I had one of the most games finished with a middling number of points. So a lot more people had more potential than me. I would only have had 8 points of this game with 4 games finished. Players that are kind of doing a little bit better than everyone else would be Irene, Tamaris, and blue here, Wawrzyniec. Each of them had somewhere around 4 games with 3 or 4 games with quite a bit more potential than me. I think Irene had probably 8 points with 3 games finished. Wawrzyniec 4 games finished, 11 points. Tamaris 3 games finished with 11 points or something as well. Players that are doing probably about equal or better than me at this point were Genghisip and Silent. They had 3 games finished each, 6 points each, and Mushan probably the only one doing worse than me at this point because he had 3 games finished with only 4 points. So, anyways, thanks for watching, and hopefully catch you on the next video.